Welcome back to the Demon Slayer Gaming Channel. We're going to be continuing our Final Fantasy XIV Dungeon Guide series today. We're going to be taking a look at Snowcloak. This dungeon's bosses have quite a few interesting mechanics, so there will be quite a bit to pay attention to and try to replicate. With how little groups pay attention to mechanics now, some of this is going to be very difficult, as you'll see in my party here. Just trying to get them to listen was quite hard at times. For the beginning portion, you're going to be dodging large stalagmites, stalagmite or type, whatever one from the ceiling, but giant ice crystals falling from the sky that will do an AoE around them after they fall, along with a couple AoEs from the actual enemies. Once you get around to White Bear and kill it, it will drop a key that you will need to pick up. The first boss, Wandil, will summon frost bombs into the area and does a snowdrift that applies a debuff to the entire party. He also does large AoEs around the room, and everything that he does, anytime you get hit by any of his abilities, applies a stack of the frost debuff on you. Once you reach a certain amount of stacks, you're frozen in place. So you want to try to avoid these as much as possible, especially as the tank. About halfway through the fight, he'll use an ability to close off the outside of the arena, and so you'll be forced to stay in the middle portion, making it a lot harder to dodge most of his abilities. If you're able to dodge everything appropriately, you should be able to avoid all of the extra stacks from the enemies and not get frozen at all. The path to the second boss will have several enemies that fall out of the sky inside of large snowballs. The portions of the path that seem like they have wind going across them will apply a constant debuff to you that deals a bit of damage. So you want to try to not stand on top of that area. So pull in between the areas that have the wind effect to them. For the second boss, Yeti, there will be additional ads that spawn throughout the entire fight, you do not want to kill most of these ads. The little ones that are Spriggan Ice Cutters, you do not want anyone in your party actually killing them. What you want to do is face Yeti towards them so that his ice breath will freeze them. It turns them into small little snowballs that will be used in a later part of the fight. The Frost Hounds, though, do need to be targeted down by your team so that, or otherwise, they will destroy the snowballs that are created. So the buffet that the Yeti does can also destroy the snowballs. So the best thing to do is as soon as the Spriggan Ice Cutter spawns, he's pretty far to the outside of the arena. This is whenever you want to turn the boss to him and actually get him to freeze the Ice Cutter when he's far enough away that you can freeze him, have him getting hit by the Ice Breath, but not having getting hit by the Wind Buffet. Whenever the boss is casting Norphelius, this is whenever you should go to the snowballs that you've created and hit them in his direction to cause them to fly at him and interrupt his casting. There's 3 variations of the snowball, so each time that he does the ice breath, he can make the snowball larger and larger. And once it gets to the tier 3 snowball, it does a ridiculous amount of damage to him. So you want to try and get as 1 or 2 of these to that tier 3 version, and then you can use them to essentially just one-shot the boss, as you'll see a bit later in this fight. And that's the first one we were able to successfully interrupt. That was with a tier 1 snowball, so not a lot of damage was caused. And he typically does 2 to 3 frost breath in between each buffet. So you can, if you have snowballs that are close to him, you can get him to freeze them once or twice, and then turn him away so that he doesn't destroy them with the buffet. As you can see there, once you get them into the 2nd and 3rd tier, they do quite a bit of damage to him, so even if he's not casting his spell, you can hit them at him for large chunks of damage. In the next area, the Glacial Sprites, do large explosion AoEs once they get down to about 75% of their HP. So just do a little bit of AoEing until they get low enough to destroy themselves. This next area here is sort of like a gauntlet where you'll have to fight a few enemies. Then once you beat those, a few more will spawn. You beat those, a few more will spawn. Nothing difficult, so you just stay in the middle and allow everything to come to you. Pick them all up and then AoE them down or pick them off as best you can. You want to watch out for any explosions from the bombs or AoEs of different sorts. During the second group, the ice crystals will begin falling from the sky again. So you have to avoid the initial fall radius and then also the explosion that happens afterwards. Once the Snowcloak is dead, the main pathway will open up. You'll come across Harriers that work the same way as the other dragon type enemy in the Stone Vigil hard mode. You'll want to mark the Harrier and focus on destroying him as soon as possible. You can stun him when he's almost done finishing his cast and forcing him to restart it. Once the last enemy is dead, it should drop a Finger of the Apostate, which you'll use to open the door to Oblivion. And prepare yourself for the final boss, Fenrir. Now, Fenrir has several interesting mechanics. To begin with, he does have a frontal cone ability that you will want to face him away from the rest of your team. He has a 1,000-year storm ability, which is a party-wide AoE, which is unavoidable. When you see the Howl there will be 3 crystals that drop from the sky. The 2 that drop on top of your party members will do a line AoE towards a different party member. The third one, after a short amount of time, will do an explosion radius. Every second cast of this ability, though, he will begin casting Lunar Cry after they fall from the sky. You'll want to get behind the one that is left behind. And then as soon as Lunar Cry is done, move away from it to avoid the explosion. If you are hit by Lunar Cry, you will be frozen in place and take a damage up and have a damage amplification debuff applied to you. And then he does do a leap attack on someone immediately afterwards, so it is a high chance of receiving a lot of damage. For the third cast of the ability, it'll focus like the first one, so just avoid the line AoEs and then move away from the other crystal for the explosion. The fourth cast will be like the second one. Avoid the 2 line AoEs and then get behind the third crystal to avoid Lunar Cry. And that should be it for the Snowcloak. Thank y'all for watching, and I hope this helped a few of you out. If it did, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you on the next one.